Alright, so this video is NS1d, and this is where we're going to learn how to add and subtract integers using rules. Alright, so first let's talk about this vocabulary word, absolute value. The definition of absolute value is just basically the distance from zero. So if you look here at this number line, to go from 0 to -5, we have to go 5 spaces. And since we're talking about distance, remember, you cannot measure anything with negative numbers. So whenever we're talking about distance, it has to be a positive number. So -5 is 5 spaces from 0. That's the absolute value. Alright, so let's get into what we're really here for, and that is the rules for adding and subtracting integers. So let's take a look at the rules for adding integers. Alright, so the first rule says this: if you have an equation or expression in which the signs of the terms are the same, then you're going to just add those numbers together and you're going to keep the same sign. Now, if those signs are different, you're going to subtract those numbers and then keep the sign of the number with the highest absolute value, the one that is the furthest away from 0. So let's take a look at some examples. -4 plus 10. So when we look at -4 plus 10, we need to see the signs of these two numbers, of the terms. This first term is -4. It is negative. The second term is a positive 10. These signs are different. So since these signs are different, we're going to subtract these numbers. 10 minus 4. Now 10 minus 4 is 6. Now remember, the rule also says that you're going to look at the numbers. If the signs are different, which of these numbers have the highest absolute value? So when you find the one with the highest absolute value, that's the sign that your answer needs to take on. So when you look at this example, 10 has the highest absolute value. So therefore, the answer is positive 6. Let's take a look at this second example. Here, let's look at our terms. This first term is 3, and our second term is positive 5. When we look at these two terms, we realize that our signs are the same. And since our signs are the same, we're going to add the numbers together, and we are at 8. And because we're going to keep the sign, the answer stays positive. Remember, signs are different. Subtract. Take the sign of the highest absolute value. Signs are the same. We're going to keep the sign after we add. So let's take a look at the next problem. When we look at this, -1 plus 11, these signs are different. This is negative and this is positive. So therefore, if they're different, we're going to subtract as the way that we do regularly. So 11 minus 1 gives us 10. Now you go back to the problem and you figure out which one has the highest absolute value. So the absolute value of -1, you guys, is 1. And then the absolute value of 11 is just 11 because there's 11 spaces from 0. So our answer should be positive. So the answer will be positive 10. Now let's look at this next example. Here we're going to take a look at our two terms. This is -10 and this is -13. What you notice here is that the signs are the same. And since the signs are the same, we're going to add the two numbers together. We have 10 plus 13. That gives us 23. And we're going to keep the sign. So the answer will be negative because both signs are negative. So -10 plus -13 is -23. Our next example, same process. We're going to take a look at our two terms. We have -5 and a +2. Well, these signs are different. Remember, difference. We're going to subtract 5 minus 2. And 5 minus 2 is 3. Now let's take a look at our numbers. Which of these numbers have the highest absolute value? Well, -5 is more spaces away from 0 than +2, so therefore our answer has to be negative. So this answer is -3. All right, -12 plus -2. If you look, our signs are the same, so we're going to add. So that's going to be 14 when we add those two numbers together. And we're going to keep the sign. These signs are negative, so it's going to be -14. All right, so now your turn. Take a look at these problems, solve them, and then come back and check your answers. Go ahead and pause now. All right, you're back. So let's take a look. Our signs, are they the same or are they different? They're different, so we're going to subtract. We get 4. And since 5 has the highest absolute value, the answer will be -4. The second example here, we have -8 plus 3. Are our signs different or are they the same? They're different, so that means we're going to subtract. When we subtract, we get 5. And since 8 has the highest absolute value, it's going to be -5. Number 3, -6 plus a -3. The signs, they are the same. So that means we're going to add our numbers together, and that becomes a 9. And since our signs are negative, we're going to have a -9. Remember, same signs, add and keep. All right, so let's take a look at this example. -4 plus -2. Our signs are the same, so we're going to add, and we're going to keep the sign as negative. So this answer is -6. 8 plus 5, our signs, they are the same. So we're going to add those numbers together, and we get 13. And since these numbers are positive, our answer is going to stay positive. And with our very last example, 2 plus 6, these signs are the same, so we're going to add them together, and we get 8. And since the signs are the same, our answer should also stay positive, since both numbers are positive. All right, so remember, when we're adding integers, if the signs are the same, we're going to add those numbers together and keep the sign. However, if our signs are different, we're going to subtract those numbers, and we're going to take on the sign of the number with the highest absolute value. So what about subtracting? The rules for subtraction is simple. What you can do is you can convert the equation to an addition problem and then follow those rules. Or you can use my method, and I will show you an example using both ways. So let's take a look at how we convert. Remember, this is the same thing as adding the additive inverse. So we can change this to -4 plus a -10. And then we can follow those same rules. The signs are now the same, so we can add and keep. So this becomes -14. All right, let's see that one more time. We can change it to the addition problem. -1 plus a -11. The signs are the same, so we're going to add the two numbers together, And since both numbers are negative, my answer will be negative. All right, but what about my method? The way that I look at it is I don't have to convert because we know that that plus sign is there automatically. So what I like to do is this. I like to take the sign that is in front of my second term and I circle the entire term and that operation. So now I'm going to look at it as two separate terms. We have a positive 5 and a negative 3. Are the signs for positive 5 and negative 3 the same? No. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract. And which one has the highest absolute value? 5. So therefore, 2 will be positive. So 5 minus 3 is 2. Let's take a look at that again. At this example here, I'm going to circle the operation and the number. And when I circle the operation and the number, I now have two different numbers, negative 5 and negative 2. Are these signs the same? Yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add those numbers together. And what are my signs? They're negative. So this will be negative 7. But what if you come to a situation like this? A negative 13. What do? Remember how we talked about having double negatives. If you say a double negative, then you're actually saying the positive. And that holds true in mathematics. So if ever there's a case where there are two operations, what you need to do is you need to change those two operations to one. Remember, a negative and a negative means positive. Double negative means positive. So this is like saying negative 10 plus 13. Now, I can circle my second term. These signs are different, so we're going to subtract, and I get 3. And since 13 has the highest absolute value, my answer is going to be positive. Let's try that again. Here we have negative 12 minus a minus 2. Remember, circle the operation and that second term. Here we have two operations, double negatives. Can we have double negatives? No. So this becomes negative 12 plus 2. Now I can circle my second term and that operation. Are my signs the same? No. So I can subtract and I get 10. And which one has the highest absolute value? Negative 12. So therefore my answer will be negative 10. Alright? So here's your turn. I want you to take time out to do these problems. Hit pause, come back, and check your work. Alright, you're back. So let's try it. We're going to circle this back number. Our signs are the same. So therefore, we're going to add them together and keep the sign. And just for reference, you get negative 5 plus a negative 1. Same here. Let's circle the operation and the second term. Remember, we have a double negative. It needs to be positive. Now we can circle our second term. The answer is negative 2. Because the signs are different, we can subtract. And since 4 has the highest absolute value, the answer is negative 2. Alright, we're going to circle the operation and the second term. Negative 8 minus 3, these signs are the same. So we're going to add those numbers together and we get a negative because we're going to keep the sign. Or negative 8 plus negative 3. Same signs, add and keep. Circle the operation and the second term. our signs are different, so we're going to subtract. And since 8 has the highest absolute value, our answer is just positive 3. Operation and the second term, again the double negative, change it to a positive. Now we can do so. The signs are different, so we're going to subtract. And since 6 has the highest absolute value, the answer is going to be negative 3. And our final example. Here, our signs are different, so we're going to subtract. And since 6 is negative, the answer is going to be negative 4. But if you needed to convert it, 2 plus negative 6. Alright, so hopefully your answers are all correct. What I need you to do is to go to Naiku, answer those quick questions, and then get ready to learn or get into your groups tomorrow. See you tomorrow.